Hello, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Coach Tiffany Parra, Editor-in-Chief of Phoenix Fitness Fanatics Magazine, elevating your mind, body, and spirit. Today, we are taking center stage on the Own It magazine and publishing platform with some of our amazing contributing writers. We got a great subject today. Look, I'm just going to bring them on in. Hold on a second. Let me bring them on in. Hey, good morning, Coach Felicia.
Hey.
And hey, we got Miss Audrey Link in the house. Good morning, ladies. I'm so excited to see you this morning. So let's just take a minute because some people out there don't know who you are. So let's just take a minute to share who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about what you do. So let's start with you, Felicia.
Yeah, so my name is Felicia Pelto, Michigander, still am. So the great Midwest. And I'm a integrated nutrition health coach, but I focus on weight loss and hormone health. And I help women release the game, guilt, and frustration around weight loss and all those hormonal influxes so that they can lose weight, balance their hormones, and essentially live free as a feather.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Welcome. All right, Miss Audrey, introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I am from Alberta, Canada. It's starting to get warm here, so I'm excited to get out into the gardens and stuff. Yeah. So I am a aromatherapist, Ayurvedic practitioner, nutritionist, Ikigai coach. And so I love to help people align themselves with who they really are and use the tools that we have in nature to live your best life and empowered living.
Love it. And you know I'm that nature girl. Look, I always tell everybody I am a tree hugger for real. Every day I got to get out there, get my feet in the grass and hug those trees. And, it just makes us feel so good. I mean, it's science behind it. We know that when we just take a minute just to go outside, just the power behind that, we feel better. Our energy level goes up a little bit and, it's just amazing. So today we're talking about spiritually aligned living and tapping into your inner phoenix for growth, for healing. Okay. And man, let's get started. So how do you define spiritual wellness, right? Because there is a difference. I mean, we were talking backstage, Audrey, we were talking about, like that spirituality versus religion. I mean, there is a huge difference there. So today we are really specifically talking about how to just spiritually, and spiritual is really, it's that inner self. It's really being able to it's the essence, right? It's our essence. So how do you define, spiritual wellness, and why is it essential for our overall health? So we'll start with you, Felicia.
Yeah, I feel like, spiritual wellness has a lot to do, like you said, with your inner self. And if you're aligned with that, like, I think the confusion is like, religion kind of gives you like a construct and rules. But like, I feel like spirituality is alignment with your own self-created rules, your own beliefs and values and sense of morals, and sometimes when it comes to religion, maybe that might even be the easy way that people choose is like, oh yeah, that sounds like, me, but then at the same time, like if you don't know enough about that, you can sometimes get pulled into something, not knowing that you're being pulled into it. So I guess it's really just like, does it sit right with you? And really taking that time to like ask yourself, like, do I agree with this? Like questioning things is actually a good thing. And what I found, unfortunately, in some of my religious upbringing was that it was almost, stop that. Don't question, just accept.
Right.
And it's like, wow, like if, and that's speaking as like, I would say as a Christian, but like being not able to question, it's like, how do I learn? How do I develop? How do I grow if I can't question the complexity of something so that I have an internal understanding and relationship with it? It shouldn't just be one-sided and kind of, down. I should be able to have like that consistent exchange. I mean, even Genesis 1 talks about how Adam and Eve were able to talk to God and God came to them and had that conversation. Like it wasn't that he was like, you do this, So it's like, it just gets lost in the fluff. So if you can really identify like who you are without being told who you are,
Right.
right? From the inside out, that's really where you're finding that sense of spirituality.
Right. Yeah. And like you said, it's just that feeling, right? How we feel, like learning how to tap in, because our own spirit inside. I mean, we're spirit inside of a meat suit, okay?
Exactly, right. We
So
are spirits having a human experience, right? Like,
right. Yeah. So it's
so
really, like you said, like our spirit is going to tell us, like if we eat something, right? Like sometimes before you even put it in your mouth, you're getting, a download that says you really don't need that. Why are you
$100%.
don't do it. Don't do it. That's, that's an intuition, right? Intuition,
Yeah.
excuse me. And so we a lot of times don't listen to that. So Audrey, what's your take on this? How do you define spiritual wellness, and why is it so essential for our overall health?
Spiritual wellness for me is growth. Just like you said there, it's growth and it's healing. Um, for me, it's like we've come here, or I've come here. I don't know about you guys, but I've come here as a spirit to learn lessons, life lessons, whatever they are, right? So every experience is like a spiritual awakening. It's like, okay, so maybe you got sexually abused. That's a spiritual awakening to figure out why your spirit came here. Well, my spirit came here to have that experience. And we can either get bitter or we can get better.
Right.
And so all these
I love that.
experiences that we have, yeah, chime in, Felicia, absolutely.
Likewise.
Spirit, like our spiritual walk here is every experience that we have. It's the growth, it's the connections with amazing people like you and Felicia. It's
Yeah.
it's why are we doing what we're doing sometimes, right?
Yeah.
It's going to, I know a friend who's went to Bali and is in all of those um different, the yoga and the spiritual work and all of that kind of stuff. And right. And we do yoga here, and we do meditation here, and we do, uh, walking in nature. You were talking
Right.
about walking in nature, and I know people who can't walk in nature because they're in the city, right? And they're
Mhm.
maybe
Right.
downtown city, right? So for
Yeah.
me, it's called Shinrin Yoko, and you put
Oh,
that on, and this is a similar chemical constituents of a tree. So you
nice.
you
Mm.
have a tree by putting this on, right? Because it has the
I love it.
same chemical that a tree emits. They made that specifically for people who can't always walk in nature. I mean, me, I can walk outside because I have trees right here,
Right.
and it's a whole forest. But some people, when I
Lovely.
walked through the city, there wasn't a lot of trees. There wasn't a lot of nature unless you do your yard nice, right? Those who live in apartments, if they make gardens. So spirituality is getting to know yourself
Right.
more and more and more. My saying
Yeah.
is the best way to love yourself is to know yourself,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
right?
think, and that's the essential part of it, right? Like that's the essential part of our overall health, is getting to know us, how we feel, what we like, what we don't like, what stresses us out, what doesn't stress us out, what gives us joy, right? And
Right.
just
Spirituality isn't out there. Spirituality is here.
Absolutely.
absolutely.
And no one can really tell you how to do that, which is, but it's funny how much there's like people trying to tell you how, and usually guys as religion, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
so I love our conversation.
Yeah,
I
and
love
so
it.
that's
I
why
love
it's
it.
that's why it's good for our health to know
Right.
what we need,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Here.
Absolutely.
Because your
Absolutely.
needs, Felicia, your needs, Tiffany, are totally different than my needs.
Right.
Right. Just like the body, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
our
Yeah. It's
spirit,
like
our body.
we do
Yeah.
it, like you have people that, they can basically eat meat, they're carnivores, right? And then you got people that can't, like, so I mean, we all have such a different makeup, right? So let's go to our next question. And we've already kind of tapped into this a little bit. So what are some simple ways, right? We talked about a few of them, getting out in nature, hugging trees, using the essential oils, that have, if you can't get out in nature. But what are some simple ways that people can reconnect themselves when they're feeling just, disconnected and drained? Because right now, I think just in the climate of things, people are just walking around just depleted and just drained. And, when you feel drained and disconnected, you lash out because you feel like something's missing or you just don't feel right. So
or you got jealousy or sorry.
No, you
but,
do.
those bad emotions start foaming to the top, and
right. You don't have that positive, flow, right? It's just a huge negative. And, but what are some things that we can do? I mean, we've already, again, shared some of them. And I think even reconnecting with people, we're
100%.
here in this digital world, and, yes, Zoom and all these other, apps are great, to keep us connected, globally. But they also keep us disconnected because we're not able to, a lot of times, we don't want to a lot of times get out there and actually connect in person, because that gives me life. Connecting with other people, being able to give somebody a hug, things like that, that helps me to reconnect, helps me not to feel so drained, and then also just being around my animals as well. I just, they give me life too. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, and this is something that stuck with me for, I feel like probably almost a decade now, but I remember reading, this was far beyond before the pandemic, where they talked about 8 hugs a day is enough to keep the body at homeostasis emotionally. But 13 hugs a day is really what someone needs to go above just regulating emotionally. And I thought, how amazing. Because at the time too, Tiffany, me, I was working outreach and for my job at a school. And I was interacting with people a lot every day, all day, people thanking me and giving me gratitude for helping and assisting them and stuff. And, our community, and I mean like people of color, we usually are those huggers, so the more I was with, how I feel my people, the more they're like, oh my God, thank you so much, sis. And they're giving me hugs. So I'm getting 20 hugs a day, just getting filled up every day, and as a hormone health coach now, it's like hindsight, that's that oxytocin.
It is.
That's that positive, not dopamine, but oxytocin, which does something completely different. That makes us feel connected. That helps us even, feel deeper within ourselves on a spiritual level. It fills us up spiritually, emotionally, and physically in a way that nothing else can in that way, And so it makes me think, like, now how you're saying, like, all my hugs really come from my little one now, or, my husband or girlfriends that I see, not so much the random strangers anymore, because, we're all like afraid of the cold or the sickness or the COVID. But now it's exchanged to at least the simple handshake, or sometimes it's the elbow bump or the rubbing the shoulders together. But the closer we are, naturally, we're good. I have colleagues that as soon as we see each other, it's like, no, we're embracing. There is no, we're stepping back from each other, like, because there's just that hug. And then I want to say that they say too, like, you need at least a good 30 seconds.
Right.
And what's funny is how awkward that is when you don't do it all the time.
Right. Because that could be a long time.
Yeah, it feels like a long time, but it's like, it takes a minute. You sitting there hugging, and then at some point your brain's like, okay, we done. No. Oh, for the person that's really being mindful, it's like they're waiting for you to fight. Like, then they know the hug is done, when you finally stop tensing up. But otherwise, like, even your brain and body is like, wait, what is this? So I would say, connect to your people, physically touch. I know they've trained us at this point to be afraid to touch each other, but go where you feel safe doing it. Your friend, your family, even asking your little ones. No little kids like no when you ask for a hug. Usually they're like, yes, because even they're like, you know what, that's a good idea.
Right.
And you're teaching them how to ask for it too, you know, when they need it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing I would say is just to help people not quite look too much outside of themselves, but to help them look inward, is a book that I really loved. Was it by Jack Canfield, Success Principles?
Mm-hmm.
I came across it and this was decades ago at a garage sale for $1. It was his original book. And I love it because he also is talking about things throughout time, you know, so you can hear, like in his latest 10-year edition, he talks about Obama, whereas before, you know, he's talking about the presidents of that time. So like you get to even get historical awareness, and some principles are repeated, but he really holds you accountable for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's asking you, what do you want to do? He's even teaching you how to do like heart exercises and meditations just to really keep checking in with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of like how Audrey was saying, you know, being aware, like some things happen for a reason.
Right.
He kind of goes in that direction too, being like, okay, here's the event in your reaction and the outcome. Like, here's you in that equation, and you can only control these things.
Right.
So how do you want to move forward knowing that, you know? And so I feel like it really empowers you, you know, like you can choose, as Audrey said, to regress or be better.
Right.
And so you have that same choice when he's talking to you by yourself in that book. Like either you can move forward or you can stop right here and get rid of my book, because the rest of it ain't gonna help you if you can't do this first thing.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Love it. Good stuff. Audrey, what are some other simple ways that people can reconnect themselves when they're feeling disconnected and drained?
Stop watching the TV.
Yes.
Oh my God. Stop listening to the crappy news. Like, disconnect from that negative crap.
Yes.
It's disconnecting from negative. Like, I mean, it's happening out there. I get it. It's happening out there. But you know what? We don't have to like mull in it and bring it in, right? Because that's where we then get disconnected, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's disconnecting from those negative people in your life,
right?
Mm-hmm. So you have to disconnect and get away from the drain first before you can reconnect with here, right? Because when you're in that mull of oh, this person's doing this and this person's doing that, and oh my gosh, I was just talking with a friend last night, and we go to my essential oil convention in the States in Utah every year in September. And we're just talking about that. And they're like, oh my gosh, we won't be able to cross the border because of this and because of that. And because of, I'm like, whoa. We're going to be able to cross the border. Don't worry. We've got this. We've done it every year. Right. What's the difference in this year? Nothing really.
Just fear.
Right? We drive. It's the fear of, you know, this official's doing this and this official's doing that.
Right.
You can control here. We can control here, right? And how we interact with the world, how we connect with ourselves.
Yes.
Right? Don't worry about the outside world. Oh my gosh, it's going to happen anyway.
Right. You can't control it. You can only respond to it.
Yeah.
But
and how you respond is how you can connect, right?
Yeah.
And get disconnected, right? If you're worrying about that outside world, you're disconnected.
Right.
You're disconnected with spirit.
And it's anticipatory, right? So it's even like wasting energy before it needs to be utilized.
It is so draining.
Yeah.
It is so draining, right?
Like it's not a matter of reacting, but just, you know, you're anticipating and it might not happen for months.
Right.
So you're just sitting there with that anxiety and stress. Right. 100%. It just, they just did it to see, said it to see how people would react. Just almost like a social experiment, as many of us think some of this is.
Yeah. Right. And there's a lot of narcissism out there, right? A lot of narcissism. And like, I mean, I'm not going to say that I don't have, everybody has it'd be a little narcissistic tendencies, right? Yeah. there's out there, there's a lot of narcissism where they're just trying to manipulate you, right? That's why it's very, very important to be very, very tuned in to yourself, which is spirit,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
You are spirit, right? You're the connection. You're the
Yeah.
connection to it all. So ground yourself. Go outside. Put your feet on the grass.
Mm-hmm.
Even on the concrete, if that's all you got, it's still
Right.
connecting.
It's still connecting. It really
Go out
is.
there. Put your feet on the ground. Take your shoes off. Put your feet on the ground. You know?
Yeah.
And then
Even
just
turn
look
on
around.
water. Turn on water sounds. You know, if
Mm-hmm.
you turn on those sounds, that even helps you to, you know, just close your eyes and listen to the sound. You know, that you can take yourself there, really. I mean, our mind is such a powerful thing, right? So
Go
Or, you know,
buy
like
some
you're saying,
flowers. Go buy some flowers. Go smell some
Yeah.
flowers. Like, I mean, buy yourself some roses.
yeah.
I'm thinking take a shower because, you know, sometimes just the washing, right? The washing
Yes.
away.
Mm-hmm.
And you can imagine it even just washing away your stress and worries, washing
it.
away all the negativity you've absorbed that day. Just
That's
clean yourself.
I mean, it's all about the mindset, right? And that leads me into our next, you know, question is, you know, how can our mindset shifts and those affirmations help us to rewire those negative thoughts, right? Because we all have those negative thought patterns, even if we have gone through the most training, and it still sometimes rears its little head. You know, we're all human.
That
So,
stinking thinking is always there.
right?
That little voice on your shoulder.
Exactly, right. And it's just that you have to just, I mean, it's that mindset shift, right? And I mean, I put affirmations up, and I wake up with Louise Hay every morning, you know, and I put that on, and you know, I love her voice, and it's that good morning, and then you know, she gets into just all the different things to be grateful for, and that is really something that shifts me because you know, there's always something to be grateful for. You know, we could be at the lowest of the low that we think, but if we just take a moment to sit still and just look around, there's people that are dealing with stuff a whole lot worse. So I think really, like for me, my mindset is just having that attitude of gratitude, you know, that just changes everything for me to make me go from that negative, you know, back to that positive. Like, oh, wait, I do have that. I do have food in my stomach. I do have, even if I'm in a tiny home right now, I do have a roof over my head, you know?
I love that.
Yeah. So Felicia, I mean, what's your take on like how can our mindset shifts and affirmations really help us to rewire, you know, those negative thought patterns?
You know, and I'll be honest, like they definitely help. I won't say that they don't, but it may take a minute because
Yes.
I can just in relating to it, you know, my first coming to those, you know, you might be living in a situation you don't like everything in front of you might be affirming the opposite.
Right.
So at first it might feel like you're just lying to yourself a little, you know, by saying those affirmations.
Right.
But I feel like you're subconsciously and consciously, right? Brainwashing yourself. And I say that because why are we allowed to let everything else brainwash us but ourselves? You know what I'm saying? Like when we're looking at social media, we're listening to songs on the radio. And I don't know about you, but the number of times, you know, I've seen people make reels where you're like, you thought this is what the song was saying, but then you finally hear it now as an adult and you're like, what the heck was I listening to? You know, so to me, I feel like that's, again, just like another empowering step to essentially intentionally rework your mind and brainwash yourself, even when it sounds false at first. You got that's part of that quote unquote faith that religion will try and tell you to have, right? Well, have faith in yourself. Have faith that this will work, right? You got to have faith in the unseen until it is seen, right? So there's some nuggets of truth in religion. It's just sometimes I believe weaponized on us. And so taking that foundation back for our own spiritual growth and listening to those as they are meant to be for our growth, then that's what that's really saying. You know, have faith in the unseen before it is seen, because you got to put the work in,
right,
where it'll be, you know, it won't be seen for a minute. And then you're going to wake up one day and go, oh my God.
right.
And I can say with confidence that that's happened multiple times for me now, which is why I can, you know, reflect on that timeline and go like, yeah, it takes work. You got to constantly reprogram that brain. Because if you think about it, I mean, my initial situation I was brought up in wasn't necessarily always the healthiest dynamic and things like that. I witnessed not the greatest dynamic in relationships or you know, even emotional support or conversation having, you know, wasn't healthy. So for me to start trying to say, you know, I want those things, I want the opposite, that was me undoing like 20 years of programming.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and I can't expect myself to just unprogram and reprogram in just a few months when there was 2 decades worth of work done on me.
That's true.
You
That's
know, so now I can say I'm probably at least a decade and a half after that of working on me, that's why I can look back and go, okay, like, you know, I mean, another 5 years, I will have at least matched the amount of programming that I came from to self-programming and empowering at that point.
right.
And then allowing myself, right, self-programming, such as being connected to beautiful people like you, Tiffany, and you, Audrey, that just help escalate and improve that going forward, you know, because like Audrey said, it's who you surround yourself with too. It took time to start releasing some of those relationships, even because, you know, just like we talked about weaponized religion, or at least I did, people will weaponize your relationship just as well. You know, how dare you start to change?
Right.
You know, they don't say it to you, but it's like, no, I liked you when you were gullible and meek, and you know, you'd let me. Would you say, Audrey? Go ahead.
Crab in the bucket.
That's
right. You know, I liked you the way you were. You know, who you are, you're calling me to have to rise too, you know, and I don't want to. So if you do it and I don't want to, what does that mean for me? Is what what they're saying.
That's right.
And, you know, and I've had that even with, you know, my very close personal relationships where I had best friends that I grew up with. And now, you know, they're essentially telling me that, you know, you're too different, or, you know, you're on a whole different path and all that. While I was trying to still say, like, we can still have this relationship. And they're like, I'm like, okay, well, you know, that's your choice, because I am on this path and I'm not gonna derail just, I don't know, for
feel good.
yeah, for what, you know, for whatever this confusing thing is.
Right? Yeah. No, it's interesting how that works. It is, you know. Yeah. So let's go to you, Audrey. So what's your thoughts on it, Audrey?
To rewire my brain is always, where'd Felicia go? She left us. Yeah. She'll be back. Yep. Probably dealing with the little one. To rewire my brain, it takes so many different tools. Yeah. So many different tools, right? Like, I mean, the like meditation, walking in the trees, and it's a constant struggle. Like, I mean, if you're out there and you're like, yeah, I can't get this. Well, I'm still having the same problem. You know, I still have my stinking negative thinking every once in a while. Like, why is this happening? You know, and it's rewiring my brain, always having the question, what am I learning here? What in my life does my spirit want to learn? And rewiring my brain to thinking that there is something that I am to do here in the world. And maybe it's this. Like, I mean, the three of us are here, you know, getting our messy crap out into the world.
Right.
Right. Like, I mean, I know, Tiffany, you're not perfect. And Felicia, I'm pretty sure you're not perfect. And I know I ain't perfect. So it's figuring out what the mess is, that negative mess, and going, okay, how can I turn this around? What kind of questions can I ask? How can I learn? What other tools have I got? Who is in my corner as well? right?
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, yes, we can get away, get, you know, disconnect all those negative people, but who are those ones that are in your corner that you can
Right.
talk to, that can say, okay, smarten up, you know,
Right.
turn
Right.
yourself around here, or give you that hand up,
That's
right?
right.
Instead of the hand out.
Supporting your growth. Yeah. They
Yeah,
want to see the better you.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So,
No, that's,
Yeah.
surround yourself by those people,
yeah.
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
who have the same vibrations, right?
Mhm.
I mean, you can tell when someone has the same vibration or higher than you,
Yep.
that you
Yeah.
want to come, right?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Like people will say that, like, oh, your energy, you know, and
Yeah.
sometimes that can be a good and a bad thing because they'll be like, your energy.
Yeah,
Right. Right.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or your energy. So I was listening to Mel Robbins, and she has
Love
these
her.
little shorts, and she was talking about and you were talking about it, Felicia, yourself, right? Trying to create it within yourself. And one of her analogies was, go to in front of the mirror and give yourself a high five,
Yes.
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
when you give somebody a high five, that's like a celebration,
It
right?
Yeah.
is.
Not saying, yeah, you did a good job. How many
That's
times do we do
right.
that to ourselves,
That's
right?
right.
Absolutely.
Give
I love
them
that.
a high five, right? Every morning, go, yeah, you did a good job.
Love it.
Yeah. I love that mirror work. Yeah. Mirror
Yes.
work.
Yeah,
Mirror
so
work.
that's one of the things, right? Is because that ups your spirit, that ups your
It
vibration,
does.
It
right?
does.
That
And
makes you want
especially it's you accepting you, you celebrating you. Like it
Absolutely.
all starts with you. Because if
yeah,
you don't believe it, it's the same way of whether or not you can accept a compliment,
yeah.
right? Because you
Right.
already have pre-framed how you think about yourself.
Oh, don't worry about
So if
that.
someone's
That little
exactly,
thing.
oh yeah, that's nothing. Because
That's
you thought it was nothing when you put it on. But if you're like, oh, I'm looking good today, and then
yeah,
people
That's
are like,
right.
what?
Exactly.
Yeah, you like, thank you. You know, I did try it. Like I did this.
yeah,
Yeah.
And then you completely different.
yeah.
Because
You
your
go
energy
outside
changes
into
with
the
that.
world with a different energy, with a different mindset,
That's
right?
right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So I know when we get on here, the time goes so quick. So I just want to
Does
go
it?
around the room real quickly. What advice would you have for someone who does want to align their life with their true purpose, and then also let everyone know how they can connect with you if they want to connect with you, learn a little bit more about you as well. So we're gonna go ahead and go to you, Audrey, because you're right next to me, and then we'll go down to
All
you,
right.
please.
All right. Advice, three things. Do the work on yourself. Do work for yourself. You got to do the work. It ain't pretty. It's messy. Just do the work. Connect with other people that are like-minded and going in the same direction, and get rid of those who aren't.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. You can connect with me. My website is audreyling.com, audreylink.com on the screen there. I love WhatsApp at 780-202-0649 because that's immediate. I'd love to have a conversation. And I'm on a bunch of social medias under Audrey Link.
Awesome. Thanks, Audrey. All right, Felicia.
I love everything Audrey said. So I'm gonna say for sure those three things. The additional things I would say is journal,
Ooh,
right?
yeah.
Journal your thoughts. You know, it's funny because I think about it related to the old school diary, right? Because that's what we were taught, I feel like, as girls, having a diary. But men, you can have one too. You can have
That's
a
right.
journal. But right, just about your thoughts. That's the best place to dump and then go back and read and go, you know, and really analyze that for yourself. That's the best way to really know yourself, is like getting that out, saying what you needed to say, and then when you're in a calmer space, reflecting on how you felt, what made you feel that way, and why.
Yeah.
Um, I would say read. Reading books is a great way to have just other thoughts beyond your own and beyond the circle that you're in. And so sometimes that can literally be the gateway to you taking the first steps you need to take. Another book that came to mind because of Audrey mentioning mirror work was Nathaniel Brandon's. It's like a self-esteem book. I can't remember the exact title, but it was what really made me notice how negative talk got programmed into me. Because when I was on my weight loss journey, I saw my mom often look in the mirror at herself naked and go, oh, in disgust of what she saw. And, you know, as a child, and you know, you see your mom and you're not judging your mom. So I remember thinking as a child, like, why does she do that? Like, you know, but then I noticed when he suggested doing the mirror work, I was doing that. And then when he asked, where did that come from? My mom. Like, I knew that it was, I programmed that from my mom. So it took some years, you know, but that book, I can't remember it, but it's something self-esteem. Maybe it's like the pillars of self-esteem, but it's Nathaniel Branden. And then thirdly was the other book I had mentioned, The Success Principles, because he talks about very, you know, logical, real world stuff, but he intertwines the spiritual stuff because he knows as a long-term life coach that it's not separate, you know.
That's right.
It's not really separate. It's like, you know, it's all you. You have to work on all parts of yourself.
That's right.
And so to leave one off, it's oftentimes why we can't accomplish our goals, whether it's weight loss or, you know, it's once I got into learning all those internal things that helped me finally like start to shed the weight, because it's not always about calories and physical exercise.
Yes.
It's about your emotional regulation. And like we talked about, your spiritual self. And if you're misaligned, your body's trying to tell you without messing you up, you know. It's doing its best to sustain and love you. That's what's amazing about our bodies, is that it is loving us harder than anything or anyone else could love us. Absolutely. And it is so unconditional, man. But then how you can reach out to me, Felicia Pelto. I have a professional Facebook page. I'm on Instagram, of course. I'm recently new to TikTok, so Felicia Pelto. But the easiest way to reach out to me really would be going to my website at freeasafeather.com/apply, where you can learn about my 6-month hormonal balance program, Hormonal Harmony. And you can also set up a consult with me there, and we can talk about all of your options.
Awesome. Thank you, Felicia. And you can see both of these beautiful young women in Phoenix Fitness Fanatics magazine. Yeah. So they are our contributing writers. We have just an amazing team that will really help you to become physically, mentally, spiritually, and financially fit. So if you have not tapped in, you definitely want to tap in so you can get the knowledge and wisdom every single month. So look, again, when we get on here, the time goes like that. I hope that you all got some great nuggets of knowledge and wisdom today on just being able to find that alignment when it comes to that spirituality and that tapping into that inner phoenix, right? Tap into that fire inside. Really feel what makes you passionate. And when you figure out what makes you passionate, you're going to learn how to walk in your purpose, because your purpose is what makes you passionate. All right. So we love you so much, everybody. And we'll see you next time. Take care and have an amazing week.